community in Toronto rallies against anti-Black racism in schools.
To be a teacher in blackface, like that act alone is astonishing to me.
The school board says steps are being taken to address two separate incidents, but community members say more needs to be done.
We're getting our muscle memory working so that when the time comes, we're ready to go.
Clinics prepare as Health Canada is expected to approve the COVID-19 vaccine for younger kids soon. And
the thing that got me going and moving was Jet.
A new photography exhibit celebrates the unbreakable bond between the transgender community and their rescues.
This is CBC Saturday News.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Shannon Martin. Parents and students rallied outside a Toronto high school this afternoon against anti-Black racism. Parkdale Collegiate is investigating two racist events involving staff. While the school and board say they are taking steps, students past and present say more needs to be done. Dale Manukduk is outside the school.
Earlier today, roughly 100 people, including current and former students, members of the community and local leaders gathered to challenge the TDSB to do more in addressing anti-Black racism. Some of the signage is still up from that rally. One says, "I still can't believe I still have to protest this crap," and Black students matter. The shock and confusion that overwhelmed the Parkdale community after a teacher came to school in blackface on the Friday before Halloween still exists, because it's not just that he did it, but that he was somehow still allowed to teach.
It definitely made me lose trust in administration when it came out how badly they dealt with this.
He was able to be a teacher in blackface, like that act alone is astonishing to me, that it wasn't stopped.
That wasn't the only incident. Within days, news started to make the rounds of a teacher using the N-word. The school says it wasn't directed at anyone, but instead used in reference to song lyrics. The rally-goers did make specific demands, including education for all staff on anti-Black racism specifically, and to remove barriers for offenders. One woman we spoke with is in Teachers College, where she takes an anti-Black racism course.
Some teachers are just not on par. Like they're not like changing their pedagogy to ensure that every student is safe in the classroom, and that's terrifying for me.
TDSB and Parkdale Collegiate have taken a number of steps, including bringing in social workers to support students, opening up dialogue with the parents of the students involved, and encouraging guardians to join council meetings. In a statement, Superintendent Debbie Donsky writes, "Together we will make Parkdale CI a school where all students feel a sense of belonging, where their voices are heard, and where they see themselves reflected in the curriculum, their classrooms, and throughout the school." The students are still being encouraged to share their perspectives, and on November 19th, there will be professional learning for all staff that will cover the differences between freedom of expression and hate speech and the current and past harms of blackface. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
As for the staff under investigation, both remain on home assignment. A spokesperson for the board says it hopes to provide an update this coming week. Well, it's something parents of little ones have been waiting for, the COVID-19 vaccine for kids ages 5 to 11. Health Canada says it's coming soon. Greg Ross shows us how clinics are getting ready.
And 1, 2, 3, that's it.
Today it was the flu shot, but pretty soon 5-year-old Faye could be getting vaccinated for COVID-19.
Did it hurt a little bit?
A little. I don't really like getting ouchies or anything.
We're doing just over 1,000 a day on the weekends.
Dr. Daniel Flanders runs this flu clinic at KinderCare Pediatric Center every year. But this year, as soon as he gets the green light, he says it's going to become a COVID-19 vaccination center for kids.
We have it in the back of our minds that we're, in a sense, we're training, we're preparing, we're organizing, we're getting our muscle memory working so that when the time comes, we're ready to go.
Dr. Flanders says once they get approval from the federal government, they can transform this clinic into a COVID-19 vaccination center within a week. And Dr. Flanders says there is some urgency. Last week, Canada's chief public health officer said kids under 12 represent more than 20% of new COVID cases.
We have a group of people who have high transmission and zero immunity. This can't come fast enough.
And that has many parents eager to get their kids vaccinated.
We'll be first in line if we can be.
While others admit there is still some hesitancy.
Nervousness, maybe, the uncertainty a little bit, but we still think that we will do it.
For those who have questions, Flanders says they're prepared with the answers.
We're going to have access made available to any parents who need information, who need counseling, who have questions, who are on the fence and they just want to understand a little bit more what are the risks and what are the benefits.
Of course, it's not only the parents that are going to need reassurance.
I don't want to. Boo!
Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Ontario reporting 661 new COVID-19 cases and 6 additional deaths. Today marks the highest case count in more than a month. There are currently 131 patients in the ICU with COVID-related illnesses. Infectious disease experts are warning the rise in cases could begin to place a burden on hospitals in the coming weeks and months. The push to get families the flu shot headed outdoors today.
It's a little colder than we would normally have in the office, but it's also a lot safer because we're outdoors. Anticipate that this year there will be an uptick in the cases of influenza because we're opening things up gradually with respect to COVID.
The clinic was organized by the West Toronto, Ontario Health Team. No appointments required. It was open to everyone, even kids as young as 6 months. Meantime, Mayor John Tory was at a COVID vaccine clinic at Stockyards Village today.
We've been adjusting our campaign as we are required to do by the circumstances in which people find themselves. And so we now know that we're going to have to bring the vaccines to people. And we're doing that over and over again.
It's all part of the Shop and Vax campaign that aims to make COVID vaccines, as you heard, more accessible to those who haven't yet received their doses. In other news, Peel police are investigating after a man was found dead in Brampton early this morning. The call came in just after 4 from a passerby who said they found a man with obvious signs of trauma behind a Walmart near Main Street and Huron, Ontario. The man was pronounced dead on scene. Police have not yet released any further details, but they are looking for security footage. A 36-year-old woman who was murdered in Scarborough has now been identified as Nabila Amenzada. Toronto police releasing her photo. Officers were called to a home in the area of Ellesmere and Meadowvale around 3 a.m. on Friday. Police say they found her suffering obvious signs of trauma. She was taken to hospital where she died. 24-year-old Carland Walker is now facing first-degree murder charges. A rally today at Mississauga's Celebration Square to protest the proposed Highway 413 and the Bradford bypass. The highway is expected to run between farmlands and the Greenbelt, situated between Caledon and Brampton. Meanwhile, the 16-kilometer 4-lane Bradford bypass is expected to connect Highway 400 with the 404. People at the rally say they're concerned about the environmental impact on the Greenbelt and the loss of farmland.
This is a zombie highway. The 413 has come and gone through repeated approvals, and the public has already said no before. They are saying no again because we see the need to solve our healthcare crisis, our climate crisis. And time is not on the government side, but it is also not on the people's side to solve climate change.
This comes as earlier this week, Premier Ford doubled down on his support for both projects, committing to fully funding them, although he's not provided an estimated cost or yet set a date for construction. Ford defended the project, saying they will help people, quote, get where they need to go much faster. It is Transgender Awareness Week, a chance to honor and learn more about the experiences of the trans community. That is the goal of a new photography series. It captures the powerful bond between the trans community and their rescue dogs. Delia Ashry has more.
Striking and compelling photographs of queer people and their rescue dogs, paws and hands uniting to share stories of resilience, healing, and unconditional love.
The project isn't all mental health or vulnerability. Sure, sometimes it is. It's also stories of transformation.
Jack Jackson is the co-founder of the Don't You Want Me project. The transgender man moved to Canada 10 years ago from a small island in the English Channel. After leaving a career in finance and being without a job, Jackson later found photography.
I was not doing well. It was a very difficult time. And I ended up completely by myself.
Jackson rescued his dog, Jet, 5 years ago. That's when the dog dad began capturing what surrounded him: dogs, the queer and trans community.
The rescue dog has been through this difficult situation, and once it's got security, it really transforms. It really changes personality, becomes all of those anxieties and fears or maybe aggression have gone. And it's the same with some of the people in the project.
Lucas Silvera is one of them. He's Canada's first openly transgender man to have signed with a major record label and transitioned in the public eye 11 years ago. Marcy came into his life 5 years ago, shortly after his divorce.
She rescued me, right? I'm her rescue.
Transitioning can be difficult at times, but most recently he says his mental health challenges were amplified during the pandemic.
The transition coming out of the pandemic as well was kind of difficult. It did not help my agoraphobia, being inside all the time.
An unbreakable bond with his fur baby, Marcy.
She is who got me through all of it, really, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have a reason to get up in the morning.
Silvera and Jackson hope this project reaches people from all walks of life.
It's all about giving inspiration, giving hope to some maybe younger people.
Live in your authenticity and do it safely, and just make sure that you find community and animals that will support you through it.
A walkthrough exhibit will be at several Pet Value stores across Canada, and it can also be accessed online and on social media platforms. Dahlia Ashry, CBC News, Toronto.
And if you have a chance this weekend, be sure to check out Art Toronto. We have a feature interview with a Toronto actor who's breaking barriers. Bilal Beg is the star of the new CBC show called Sort of. They are the first queer, trans feminine, South Asian Muslim performer to be cast in a leading role. That interview tomorrow at noon and Monday at 11 a.m. on Art Toronto. Sophia Cambalia is here, and I'm thinking of that expression you were saying last weekend, say it isn't snow. I'm trying to prepare myself for what's maybe around the corner coming.
Oh, it's closer than around the corner. It's about to hit us in the face. I'm talking upwards of maybe even 10 centimeters for some within the next 24 to 36 hours. How is that for a lead-in? We're seeing some wet snow showers, and wet showers rather, around southern Ontario right now. Dropping temperatures will be the name of the game. We had a little bit of mix of sun and cloud today. It was a far cry from the beautiful summer-like temperatures that we had last weekend when we talked, Shannon. Those are those lake effect showers coming in. Sunday will be a day of more wet showers, wet snow, and an impending Alberta clipper along with dropping temperatures. Let's tell you about the snow. It's going to be highly terrain and location dependent. What does that mean? The higher you are and the farther you are away from the warmer lake waters, the more snow you will get. You could flirt with 10 centimeters up in cottage country and between the London and Hamilton area, Kitchener-Waterloo, especially when that lake effect snow machine gets ramped up. You could see that upwards of 5 to 10 centimeters. It will be slushy by the time everything wraps up on Monday. You could see some flakes as far south as the Vaughan and Newmarket area Sunday into Monday, but really everybody in Toronto and around the Niagara region will mostly a rain event. It's a sign of things to come, though, Shannon. I'll tell you more about the impending wet snow in the long range.
Okay, talk to you soon. It took 200 countries and 15 days. Now a new deal on climate action has finally been reached. That marks the end of COP26. As Dominic Velitis reports, though, reaction is coming in fast and furious.
We finally have a deal. It is called the Glasgow Climate Pact. Almost 200 nations agreed to the draft text, which was unveiled this morning, which outlines how the world will curb climate change in the coming years. It comes after 15 days of contentious climate talks with some considerable drama at the 11th hour, at the very last moment. The area of contention was that unprecedented line in the draft agreement regarding coal. Initially, it called for the phase out of unabated coal. That's burning coal without some form of carbon capture to counteract the emissions it produces. But at the last minute, India and China, two of the world's biggest emitters, insisted the language be watered down. Instead of phase out, they wanted phase down of unabated coal. That provoked something of a backlash in the session from several European nations and island states. Switzerland's delegate, for example, said she was profoundly disappointed. The language surrounding fossil fuels was weakened in such a way. The EU's climate policy chief expressed his exasperation at the move. And then there was this from the Marshall Islands. Take a listen.
On behalf of the Marshall Islands, I wish to read into the record our profound disappointment with the change in the language on coal from phase out to phase down.
Disappointment too from Alok Sharma, the president of COP26. Indeed, he was very emotional by this point. He told delegates he was deeply sorry for how things unfolded and the wording of phrase about the future of coal. Holding back tears, he said he understood the deep disappointment, but that it was vital that the deal was protected. You get the sense several countries accepted this deal really in the spirit of compromise, and it is something they can just about live with. Costa Rica, Switzerland, and the Maldives are three examples, but there are certainly others. Something that was acknowledged at an earlier session today by John Kerry, America's chief negotiator. He recognized the deep discomfort expressed by many, adding, if it's a good negotiation, all parties are uncomfortable. The deal is far from perfect, but there is a deal. Dominic Velitis, CBC News, London.
Meantime, thousands of migrants remain stranded at the border between Belarus and its western neighbors. People have been attempting to gain entry into the EU through Poland, but they have so far been denied, leaving them waiting in limbo. Chris Reyes has the latest on the unfolding crisis.
Guards are throwing supplies to migrants on the Belarus-Lithuanian border. Children hold up signs desperately asking for help. One reads, "Where is human rights?" Another, "We want to cross peacefully."
We not sleep because of cold, and her baby is sick. Her eyes have problem, always out water her baby. Because she not can sleep, she crying because of that.
Polish police say they recently discovered the body of a young Syrian man in a forested area near the migrant camps.
The situation at the border is desperate, and it's getting worse by the day. You have thousands of people who are effectively stuck between European and Belarusian border guards, trapped in a cold, damp, dark forest, and desperately in need of assistance.
The crisis started brewing in August when Belarus relaxed its visa rules. That led to an influx of migrants, mainly from Iraq, Syria, and other Middle Eastern countries, looking to travel through Belarus into Western Europe. Some EU leaders have accused Belarus of creating the crisis to expose the EU's migrant policy.
Lukashenko also knows that there's no coherent migration policy and attitude in the European Union, so escalating the conflict through the topic of refugees is really hitting the European Union on a sore spot.
Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko threatened on Thursday to cut off gas supply to Europe if new sanctions are imposed on his country over the crisis. U.S. leaders say they're concerned.
The Lukashenko regime, I believe, is engaged in very troubling activity. It is something that I discussed with President Macron, and the eyes of the world and its leaders are watching what is happening there.
I think it's of great concern. We've communicated our concern to Russia. We communicated our concern to Belarus. We think it's a problem.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has denied his country's involvement in the crisis. He also warned Lukashenko that cutting off gas supply to the EU would harm the relationship between their two countries and would be considered breach of contract. Several airlines have now limited flights to Belarus from the Middle East in response to the crisis. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
A complete shutdown this weekend of the Lakeshore West Line as repairs are underway. Starting late last night until the end of service tomorrow, the Lakeshore West Go corridor is closed. Buses are running instead. Metrolink says it's necessary so workers can do what they need to do safely. Crews are replacing older sections of track. The upgrades will improve train speed, service life, and reliability. Hundreds of wellness kits will soon be in the hands of Afghan refugees who recently arrived in Canada.
There have been tens of thousands of Afghans that have lost their homes, and many of them have arrived in Canada. So we're doing our best to try and support them the best way we know how, just to tell them, you know, there's someone out there looking out for them. We have all these amazing volunteers coming out today to make around 1,000 kits.
Many came here with very little, and so you heard there, the hope is to support newcomers as best as possible. Today's event was organized by Islamic Relief Canada. They packed soap and sanitizer, masks, and more into the kits for Afghan families in Ontario, as well as Alberta and BC. Sophia's back, and you know what else is desperately needed for these newcomers is winter clothing. As you said, we've got such messy conditions on the way, some rain, some snow. Yeah,
luckily not yet the dangerous cold, but for some of you, it's going to be a real shock to the system. We're talking it feels like on Monday as you begin your work week after a slushy weekend, with it feels like of maybe -1, -2 for many of you. So yeah, definitely something that I'm not ready for, still in denial about the warm weather that we had in the recent memory. The cool down begins into your overnight period along with that lake effect showers and snow for some of you. That's a snowy and rainy start to the week. And then it's a real cool down as you begin your work week. That lake effect snow and showers is your story first thing in the morning, especially for those of you in that London, Kitchener-Waterloo area with a really big fetch and strong winds, westerly winds over the much warmer lake waters. We could see a really, really big band of lake effect snow set up for those of you there. By the afternoon, though, it's an Alberta clipper. That blue, folks, it's been a while since you've seen it. It is snow all over the map for those of you in the Southern Great Lakes Basin. For those of you closer to any of the lake shores, though, this is a rain story. You don't have to go far north, though, to see the flakes fly. Even Vaughan, Newmarket, Uxbridge, Cottage Country, again, you're flirting with that 10 centimeters. It stays around until Monday, especially some of the greater topography areas around the Georgian and the Huron shores, which could have a slushy mess Monday into Tuesday as that wraparound lake effect snow continues. For everybody else, the start of the work week is a few degrees below seasonal, and it stays that way until maybe more active weather midweek. Just the bearer of more good news today.
Yes, we were so above seasonal for so long, and now, yeah, down to the single digits.
False sense of security.
Yeah, thanks, Sophia.
Bye.
That is our show for tonight. Thanks so much for watching. You can stay caught up on news anytime on our website.